Good evening, and welcome once again to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly, and it's time to spring forward and get with the time, because it's time for new comics, bitches! Okay, so, first of all, want to start off with just a tip of the hat and say goodbye to Jean Girard Moebius. We lost him just a couple of days ago. He was 73, leaving quite an impressive resume of art behind him, creativity. I'll be perfectly honest, I am not terribly familiar with much of his work. What I did see, and I couldn't tell you where exactly I saw it in, but I do remember it being pretty extraordinary. So obviously people all over the comic book world are mourning this loss. So it is something of a great deal of note, and my heart goes out to his loved ones and his friends and all those who worked with him in the comic industry. So, may he rest in peace. Like I said, I wish I knew, and I will be kind of more actively searching out more of his work, because I would like to understand a little bit more about him and ultimately the legacy that he left behind. Beyond that, it's kind of beginning this on a rather sobering note. But let's move into this week's comics. So the first offering that we're going to talk about is since DC is back up and more or less in strength this week, although not too many that I picked up. We have Batwing #7. The first one that we talk about. Now, Ben Oliver, who's been a fantastic artist on this series, is absent from this issue. Dustin Nguyen took over art. Judd Winnick, of course, is still writing. I don't know if this is, again, one of those comics that's on the cusp of kind of maybe not being around for much longer. I mean, I think that it has the added benefit of being a Bat Family title, but it's going to need more, because we do have basically in this issue a pretty major crossover between Batwing and the rest of the Bat family, with the exception of Batwoman, because while she is a member, she's not really a member. So we've got basically we've got the origin of, well, not the origin, but the secret of the kingdom, what basically brought them all down. In the end, what ultimately forced them to disband was that the war that had been going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo was kind of being spearheaded by one man, was the major enemy, and instead of what they believed was the right thing to do, which was killing this man, they actually cleared the way to get him to live in exile and surrender, rather than take him into custody and kill him. And this basically caused a major rift within the group itself, and they disbanded. So we've got all the various members of the Bat family: Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, Robin, scouring Gotham City, basically looking for the clues of the last two members that are alive that Massacre is potentially hunting. Now, the real highlight of this issue is this discussion of this warlord and how it's kind of eerie in this particular issue, and with recent events in regards to the man Kona, who is on kind of on everybody's radar right now, as far as Joseph Kona, again, is somebody that I need to look more into. but he's been on the minds and lips of many people that I follow on Twitter. People calling for his death, his removal from power, so on and so forth, because he is somebody who does, basically like what has happened in Batwing, someone who takes children and turns them into soldiers. Now, apparently this caught some major attention because of a YouTube documentary that was put on YouTube about what exactly he's doing. So, obviously reprehensible, totally disgusting behavior, and, certainly deserves punishment. Whether it's capital punishment, that's not for me to decide. But, anyway, I think that it's just interesting that how that's kind of unfolding right now, and how we had this issue this week. Aside from that, the issue itself, aside from, of course, some stellar artwork from Nguyen, it's kind of it's a little too talky. It's a lot of exposition. Of course, when you're dealing with things from the past, that's cool. I just felt like, okay, with the the entire Bat family. Okay, I shouldn't say the entire, but most of them kind of joining forces here, that there should be something more going on. And perhaps that's where it's leading to with the next issue. Again, one of the things, and I'm going to talk about this here for a little while, because I just feel like I should be bending your ear a little bit on this particular subject, because it is something that has been bothering me lately. And that's in regards, and it's most comics in general. I'm not just talking about DC, although DC does seem to be kind of like the main perpetrators of this, and that is the constant rotation of artists. It's a hard thing to. I know it's difficult to meet deadlines. You have your editors, you have the people above them, and then you have the people, of course, who throw the money, give you the money to write and produce the art. And then there are some artists who are so good that they may need a little bit more time. I would almost prefer. Now, we've had in the past couple of years, within the last decade anyway, some pretty significant examples of that. For instance, the Whedon-Cassaday run of Astonishing X-Men was, in many people's opinion, was kind of was kind of undone by the fact that Cassaday he wasn't meeting the art deadlines, and it'd be a long time between issues sometimes. I didn't find that to be a particular problem. I would rather wait for something that's great than just get regularly something that ends up being kind of just par. Now, in this particular case, Nguyen's art, with the discussion of Batwing, Dustin Nguyen is a fantastic artist, so I have no problem with him taking over. But I also want to touch on this, which is Animal Man number 7. Now, this has it's Travel Foreman, who has been doing a fantastic job on the art in this series. He takes a back seat to Steve Pugh in this particular issue, and Pugh, I'm familiar with his work only previously from the Saint of Killers mini that he did during the run of Preacher. I thought that his artwork was actually quite good there, but it's not so good here. He's just not really good when it comes to the world of the superhero. Sometimes his art, it's such a different aesthetic from Travel Foreman's art, which does appear in this issue. And while the story itself of this issue is really pretty compelling, unfortunately, the artwork does make it suffer, because Jeff Lemire obviously has an excellent handle on what he's doing here. With kind of the story that he's telling, and with Maxine kind of becoming, she's basically the future. She's what the Red wants out of the kind of avatar of the Red's forces, as opposed to Buddy. So I mean, all of that makes for really interesting reading. It's just like I said, because of the aesthetic difference between the art of Trevor Foreman and the art of Steve Pugh, it makes for it provides too much of a disconnect in the whole narrative of the comic, and that kind of makes me sad, because this is would otherwise be a really, really good comic, and it's just that Steve Pugh's art just it's just not that great. Also, like I said, I think he works better in the confines of something like a Preacher type of title. But there you have it. I mean, it's something that's going on with like I said, with just about every title that's out there. I mean, sometimes creative teams shift for a reason, but I think in this particular case, what we're dealing with here is more of a, well, we are producing this out of necessity. We're not producing this out of actual, because these are the people that I want to work with. Like, just for instance, Brubaker's Captain America. We had Steve McNiven as an artist for the first 3 issues, and then all of a sudden there were other artists stepping in. I liked it when it was, I really was. I wasn't, I shouldn't say but I love, Steve McNiven's art. But again, he's one of those guys that doesn't really seem to get shit in on time. So, I think when people leave the kind of, mainstream universes, and they go to, for instance, Mark Millar and the Miller World and the Icon imprint, and when you have lots of you can basically make your own schedule, if you will, for when things will come out, and that's actually worked to the benefit, I think, for the most part, for Mark Millar and people like John Romita Jr. and Steve McNiven and Leinil Yu, with Kick-Ass, and with Nemesis, and with Superior, and of course his upcoming work, Super Crooks, and ultimately the Secret Service is going to be coming out as well. It's going to be Dave Gibbons doing the art on that. So that will come out when it's ready to come out, and that to me is fine. That's workable for me. Like I said, I'd rather have something that is really great from the outset, continue to be great, rather than just, okay, well, here's, it's been 4 weeks, let's go. So that to me, I think, makes things suffer. So overall, in the end. So I would say a very solid 3 for Batwing number 7, a very solid 3.5. Again, because it's mostly Jeff Lemire and his handle on the story for Animal Man number 7. So just going to do real quick on finishing up DC here for this week. We have Men of War number 7. The A story written by James Robinson, no longer Ivan Brandon, about an SAS soldier taking on a this kind of like super super badass terrorist all on his own, and then having a backup story which is again ultimately more, it has more sentiment, and that's J.T. Krull that writes that, and Scott Cohen's doing the art. Phil Winslade does the kind of the painted art for the Robinson story. It's really, really good issue. Again, I'm really sad this particular series is coming to an end. But again, another really solid 4 out of 5 for Men of War number 7. So I think the next issue is it. unless maybe it's going to 10. Anyway, so we'll be back in just a few moments with more comics. Okay, so stay tuned.